Hi, everyone. How are you? Welcome back. Welcome back. I just had a moment where I was like, did the reminder emails go out? Because we had the off week. Hi, Claire in Adelaide. Welcome. Welcome. Come on, join the joyride, guys. Just we're going to talk about congruence today. Let me stop the screen share. So I'm excited to talk about that because it's one of those topics that sometimes often really gets overlooked, and it can be the answer to the question, why am I not getting traction? Like, what the hell's going on? I'm doing all the things and it's not happening. It's a nice cat's tail there. Make a great paintbrush. So congruence is a big one, and we'll just have a little bit of a play and some fun with it. And just before we get started, next week we're having a break from live round calls, and then we'll resume again the following week where we'll get into old money story and all those really deep, gorgeous things. Also, there'll be some focus sessions. There are actually already some focus sessions available. So if you happen to know where to find the link, then you can jump on that straight away. The link is always top of in the members area where you watch the replays. It's at the top of the page. It's always the same link, and you basically just check to see if I've made the next set of sessions available. It's also the same link from the last event, and I think there's a permanent post up in the featured posts as well. So you don't have to necessarily wait for me to put up an event to kind of let you know that it's up. You can just check. Okay, so let's talk about congruence. And I did ask this in the Facebook group, but I want to ask you again. Let me know in the chat. And I might ask Claire to do it verbally, because she did have a little think about this and responded to the post. And everybody else, if you want to pop it in the chat. What does congruence mean to you when I say congruence? Claire, you want to share your thoughts on that? You need to unmute first, of course.
Need to unmute. Yes, I think it was what I experienced on the way down, because I flew business, and I would love to make that my, you know how you draw a line in the sand, so well, I always fly business. Anyway, I just realized that I felt like I was someone who can't afford to fly business, but was playing with the rich people. And I thought, oh, this isn't what I want to embody. And so then I stepped into, no, I belong here. And of course I fly business. So that's what it meant to me. Yeah. Yeah.
So embodying it and really feeling like that's, you've up-leveled to that.
Yeah. Energetically, to me, it feels
to that
energetic.
external reality.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's such a great example, because that's what we're needing to do, right? Everything we talk about is up-leveling internally so that we can be that match to the reality that we want to create. And the way we show up is a big part of that, because often people will go, oh, I'll just wait for it to come to me and let me know that I'm ready. And so this is actually about bridging the gap with those external things we do, not just the internal things we're doing to up-level our vibration and our mindset, but the actual way we show up in life, and actually starting to, knit the two together, which helps kind of create a much more stable overall system. So it's interesting how you said that about, playing with the rich people, because remember in our first call, we talked about the feeling of course. And it just reminded me of, I think it might have been Tash Corbin who said this a long time ago, first time you fly business class, you're taking all the selfies so that you can go, look at me, I'm in business class. But once that's just standard, you might take a photo to say, hey, I'm going on a trip, but you don't do the glass of champagne selfie. And that's the difference, isn't it? It's like having it feel natural and normal. And the thing is, unless you practice it,
Yeah, it
that's
was
tricky.
one of the reasons I deliberately try and fly business when I can, because it actually is easier when you're experiencing it. So, for instance, if I want more to attract more lovely clients, it's easier when someone's renewed their package to feel into that than when you look at your bank balance and it's a little bit lean.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, yeah, I'm sure you'll probably touch on that. How to,
Yeah.
how to, when you don't have the actual, I had the evidence flying. Like I could easily pretend, oh, well, of course this is normal.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was sitting back in economy, looking at the people in business with their crockery, glasses of champagne, it's kind of, I still visualize, but it's kind of a little bit more of a jump. Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's observation.
Yeah. So that's a really good comment too, because what you're talking about is using the evidence. That's why we want to make sure that we get really tuned into and jump on the evidence when it's there and use that momentum and the fact that it's right here in your face and you can't deny it, right? So it's like, yeah, of course there's always money flowing to me. Of course my clients are always renewing. Of course I always get the most amazing feedback and testimonials, and it's right there. It's irrefutable evidence in 3D manifested, right? So we want to jump on that. And so when we're talking about congruence, it's a little bit of like, how can we manufacture some of that or even just the illusion of it, but not just internally, not just like sitting back in, well, I guess it is, some of it is internal, but it's actually starting to bridge the gap to how can we also start to have it externally. So sitting back in economy, acting as if you're sitting in first class and, asking whether you can have a second helping of champagne. And the air hostess kind of smiling at you a little bit funny, but you're like acting as if like, haha, it's a joke. You can totally do that, so that's sort of you acting as if, even though you're still sitting in economy, but then actually going, no, actually, I will do this upgrade, if and when I can, whether it's upgrading to business class or it's just upgrading to buy like the really fancy cheese or the really soft toilet paper or whatever, just that those little upgrades when you can, then, you've actually helped yourself have something tangible as well. So it starts in the internal and the acting as if, and then it's all the way to how can we actually start to have more of that in our life in 3D and just getting comfortable, so it's just another way to up level yourself to a new set point of, yeah, this feels natural, this feels normal, because while it feels like a huge gap, it's really hard to bring it into your reality. So we need to just keep, working it from every possible angle we can. Make sense? Does anyone have a question or a comment or another example of that? Go, Gisela.
Well, I was thinking about there was a lot of times before I did all the money stuff properly where I wouldn't spend stuff. I look at stuff and I go, oh, nah, there's other things, But then it's like, actually, I will have that and and it's totally fine. And it's just like, of course I'm going to get things like this. Of course I'm going to replace all my socks because they're all been there for over a year or 2 or 3 sometimes. And it's like, no, it's about time to get new things.
Yeah. Throwing out like old stuff like that, old socks or the undies that have got no elastic left in them. Yeah. And those sorts of things are so bloody satisfying, aren't they? It's like, no, I don't need to hold on to this. And I think, it's great to give things to Goodwill. It's great to sell stuff, if it still has value, but you're just not getting the value out of it. But there's also something about like, I enjoyed this. it's had its life and it's now being, I'm retiring it. I'm not holding on to something that I wouldn't even be able to give to Goodwill. And then I'm holding on to it like for me to use. Like there's something in that that's very empowering. Not that I'm into like creating waste for the sake of it, but just that energy of this is past its use.
Yeah.
Off you go, or even just like digging through your fridge or your pantry. My kids always laugh. Like we used to have a like a little record of what the oldest use by date of things in the fridge was, of, condiments and stuff. I'm like, it's fine. It's still fine. That doesn't go off. Jams, never. Sugar's a natural preservative. My kids would be like, Mum, this is like almost 10 years out of date. All right, fine. Is that just me? I don't know. It's just one of my things. No one's ever had food poisoning or died, so it's all good. So in the chat box, we also have congruence is when all aspects are in alignment, beautifully wrapped up. Things lining up. Sister Gisela, Jackie said, when my thoughts, feelings, and actions are in sync and not fighting each other. Ooh, juicy. Jackie, have you got an example, or do you want to describe what it feels like when they're fighting each other? Like, I like the thoughts and feelings because that's internal, and then your actions. How do they sometimes fight each other?
I'm going to use socks. I'll use jeans.
Okay.
I'm in need now. I just haven't taken the opportunity to go and look. You can wear jeans for so long and then they start to wear in places that you don't really want to wear them anymore. And although the money was in the bank to go and get them, I thought, no, I'll just keep them for when I'm house clean. And I wore a pair of like bike shorts under them. Well, about a week ago, I threw them out. It was like, why didn't I just do that before? And I ordered a pair of pants other than jeans online because I want to go and try jeans on. But of course I can get new pants.
Yeah.
Of course I can do that. For a long, long, long time, I'd go window shopping often and look at all the things I didn't think I could have. I don't do that anymore.
Cool.
I go out and if I see something, yes, comfy jeans are hard to let go of. If I go out and I see something that I want to get, but I don't have the spendable income sitting there at that point, then when I get home, I make plans. Okay, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And still do it, or I put a deposit on it and then go back and get it. But I don't just window shop anymore. You
don't just like have your little nose pressed against the window.
Oh, it was pretty close to that for a long, long time. And then I thought I was getting really brazen when I would actually go in and try something on and it would look great. And I wouldn't rely so much on the salesperson, but somebody I might be with or whatever who was with me said, that looks great. Yeah, but not now. I'm just looking today. Yep.
Cool. And that describing that feeling of going, actually, no, I'm just actually going to let go of that now. And it's okay. It's liberating because you're actually releasing something so that you can receive something new in its place. Yep. And, when we're holding on tight, we're doing this and we can't receive. But when we let go, we're open to receiving. So thank you. That's a great example too.
You're welcome.
So let me share. Where are we? There we are. So just getting back to the thoughts become things cycle. So really today we're talking, I want to focus a little bit more on those external things. We'll be talking about beliefs and old stories in the coming weeks, and the beliefs really then inform your perceptions. We've talked about emotion that's kind of where we started with vibration, with how do you feel? How can you start to actually start shifting and taking the lead on how you feel each day, where your vibration's at. So, remember, this is a cycle, and most people forget that it's a cycle, and they just react to the things around them and let everything else be informed by that. But they never get to the point where they go, no, hang on, my beliefs, perceptions, emotions, thoughts, words, and actions create the things in my life. It's a cycle. So as I start nudging things that are around this circle, I can start getting different outcomes. I can start creating new things in my world. And so, we've started looking very much at emotions and thoughts. We've talked about, practical action around specifically taking care of your money. And today we're talking a little bit more of just your everyday words and actions, and noticing your thoughts as well, and some of the things that you can do about them in the moment, so that you can just kind of constantly have those little pattern interrupts, just start slipping in some new things. And just by doing that, you're actually hugely weakening that old system. If you think about it, like I talked about neural pathways a lot in the workshop yesterday. And, if you think about that, just running on autopilot, just firing automatically, every time you act as if, or you have, a little pattern interrupt, or you use some different language, or you just stop yourself and just do things that are a little bit outside of that normal pattern, you're actually weakening that old pattern. You're slowing it down, and it goes a really long way towards creating a new one. So you don't always have to take like huge drastic action. It's just those little chinks in the armor. Really break it down, and we really focus on laying down the new. And the cool thing is that with the things we're talking about today, you're basically doing both in the one hit, because every time you take a more empowered action where you're like, I'm letting go of that old pair of jeans, and yeah, I'm going to, upgrade to business class this time, or I'm just going to sit in economy and order a second glass of champagne, and I don't care if they think I'm being funny or weird. Every time you do those things, not only are you putting chinks in the armor of the old pattern and you're slowing it down and you're weakening it, but you're starting to lay down the new one. So, it's really great bang for your buck. You're getting two for the price of one. So I want you to think about this, even if you look at this graphic, it kind of shows you that really your words are your thoughts made manifest. So your words are really some of your thoughts you've given voice to, and you've given them even more tangible energy. So they're manifested thoughts. And often if you listen to your words and you go, well, how does that line up with what I'm trying to create? You find that they're not even in the same ballpark. And then your actions are really your thoughts in motion. Your actions are really what are you thinking? And then you're actually acting on it. So they're the manifestations of what's been going on internally. But you have control over those as well. And you don't need to suddenly go out and, sign up for things that are way outside of what's possible for you right now. But you can take little actions that go a very long way. Because at the end of the day, particularly your actions, they actually demonstrate your expectation. They demonstrate what you truly expect. So if you expect to have a whole heap of enrollments into your program that you're launching at the moment, you're going to make space in your calendar to serve those people. You're going to, get ready. You're going to make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row to send out reminders and so on, and to serve those people and to make plans for how you're going to lead them through your process and all those sorts of things. Whereas if you don't really expect your launch to go well, you'll already be planning the next, way you're going to try and bring some money in. And there's lots of examples like that. If you want to go on a holiday, well, maybe you don't buy the tickets just yet, but you start planning, like, how am I going to create the space? Where do I want to go? What kind of places do I want to stay in? You start doing your research. Oh, I booked our trip to Greece for next year. Already got our tickets. Fly out of Bali if you're going to Europe. It's like half price. So good. So that's very exciting. So your action demonstrates your expectation. So I want you to take a moment and ask yourself, and just make some notes for yourself, and then we can have a little chat about it. What would you do differently if you 100% expected it? If you 100% expected it to happen, what would you do differently right now? Get ready to be ready. How exactly? I want you to get specific. Take the next step. Cool. Do you know what that is? Make sure you know exactly what that is. Claire says that is such an interesting question. Not sure. It's more how I feel. I've realized there's slight anxiety there, but that would just fall away. Right. If that anxiety wasn't there, what would you do? And maybe it's just the way you talk about it, or maybe it's that you would talk about it. Maybe it's that you would announce it or speak about things differently. Gisela would be putting in the time and embodying it. Yep. And I'm assuming that means create some beautiful artwork after yesterday's conversation. Jackie says, I would prepare and make a list of things to do in expectation. Yep. Isha says, I think it would be confidence. I would just move towards it happening. I wouldn't doubt it. I would just keep going, not second guess myself. Yeah. So it's interesting sometimes we don't even notice how we hang back because we're waiting for the universe to go, here it is. It's okay. You can step forward, rather than stepping forward expecting it to be okay. So let me phrase this question a little bit differently for you. What would you do if you were not afraid? Take a moment to consider that. Create without a care in the world and just enjoy it. Yeah. I'm going to art class this afternoon, Gisela. I had a big talking to by my teacher about wanting every piece to look good. Oh, okay. So this will just be my practice piece where I practice different techniques and see what happens. Yes. So now I walk in and I announce to the class, I've just got a practice piece here. I'm just throwing paint down just to practice techniques and things. It's starting to look a lot better too. I think what I realized from the workshop yesterday was everything was there for my mother. It was her beliefs that stopped her seeing what she already had. Does that make sense? What about you, Isha? Do you see what's there already? And are you ready to claim it? Jack says, I would have more energy for it. Yeah, because the worry and the uncertainty is freaking draining, isn't it? Like it's just. Ugh. So if you weren't afraid, you'd have the energy and you'd show up in a different energy. Like you'd be in an energy of excitement and enthusiasm and positive expectation, right? Claire says, it feels like there would be actions I would take that do require money, which I'm not taking right now because I'm not confident that the money will come. So then you kind of get stuck in this little catch-22. So what's one little step in that direction, right? Yeah. Perfectionist, Gisela says, me? No, never. Tamsin says, I would take that next step without worrying about others and their thoughts and opinions. Yes. Stuff them. I would trust myself more, says Isha. I actually do know what I need to do. I just second guess myself all the time. It is so exhausting. It is exhausting, second guessing and worrying. And, a really good process to sometimes take yourself through is, and I wasn't even planning to talk about this today, but it's probably something that you can take away and play with later, is the, worst case scenario. Like, what am I afraid would happen? Like, what am I afraid would happen? All right, I would fail. And then what's the worst that could happen? And what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? And like really working through that and going like deeper and deeper into, and then this, like the first time I did this process, I ended up living under a bridge. And it ended up with going, like it just ended up really awful. But there was something really liberating about facing all of that, because you sort of realize how much you catastrophize, something that's just life, and you just can catastrophize and you can have all these fears underneath it. But once you actually work through them, you go, well, but you know what? I'd still be all right. Like, I'd still be all right. I've said to Martin a couple of times, I already know the bridge. There's a really cool bridge. We'd have a great time. PhD in catastrophizing. Yeah. So it's a good actual process to sometimes take yourself through, because it's the holding the fear inside and constantly, like, you've got this desire that you want to move forward, and then you've got this fear that's holding you back. And actually really facing it, going, what am I actually afraid of? What's the worst that would happen? And then what's the worst that could happen? And then what's the worst that could happen? And actually laying it all out, it just takes all the air out of that balloon. It just like, big deal. Yeah. And what if it all worked out instead? What if it all worked out? That would be kind of cool too. Any questions or comments at this point? Just want to check in. All good. All good. Okay, so let's have a little play with some of the little tools that you've got in this module. So there are 5 of them. I want you to write them down, because sometimes people mix them up or don't totally understand what the difference between them is. So we've got, hang on, I've got a different order to how I want to talk about them. We've got acting as if. We've got transitional language. We've got a universal truth mantra, different to an evidence mantra, and we should definitely talk about that. We have a reframe, and we have a pattern interrupt. So these are all in that realm of words and actions. These are all tools that we have. And a pattern interrupt and a reframe can be used on your thoughts, so it's sort of crossing that barrier. But we're talking, we're in that section of the wheel, of the cycle, thoughts becoming things. So acting as if. How are we going for time? Good. Acting as if. pretty simple, right? You can just have fun with it. It can be little tiny things. We already talked about upgrading to business class, buying the more expensive cheese. Even just, always remember Orit, when she got to this, she was like, I think she was just going for a walk one day and she went, how would I walk like if I had my first 10K month in my business? Or no, if I just had I think she started with a $10,000 month and then she ended up having $10,000 days. But she just went, how would I walk differently? Like how would I walk differently? How would I carry myself if I just had this level of business and income? And so she just like did the acting as if, but she really embodied it. And it was a really powerful exercise because you're just walking, right? But you're walking, from that space. Or how would I walk? Like I'm going for a walk in the middle of the day, just a lunchtime walk to kind of break up my day. And how would I walk if I knew that my business was just on autopilot and I really just need to show up to check everything's running all right and to maybe organize some things for my next little live launch or whatever, or to show up and serve my clients. But it's all sorted. Like, how would I walk if this walk wasn't like me quickly sneaking away because I'm so damn busy having to work and hustle, but this was just my daily walk because my business is all sorted. How would I walk differently? So little things like that, you can just do that little embodiment exercise. It doesn't even have to be you spending money or going to open inspections or going to try on, really lovely clothes. It doesn't even have to be any of that stuff. It can just be, how would I do my morning coffee out on the deck? Like, would I be watching the time going, oh, I better get back up because I've got so much to do? Or would I just relax and enjoy? So acting as if. So I'll give you time in groups later on, but can I just like a really short snippet, acting as if, let's just do a quick brainstorm around the room, just some acting as if things that maybe people don't think of so much, or that's just a really simple little thing or something that you really like doing. Let's start with Claire, because she's the queen of acting as if.
I do that walk all the time. Like if whether I'm home or in the shopping centre, I think if I've achieved my goal, walk like that, and it's different. It's usually different. Yeah.
Just shift your energy, right?
Yeah. Take up more space, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's a nice way of putting it. Beautiful. Thank you. Jackie, have you got one? Oh, unmute.
Invest in an Uber instead of a bus.
Awesome. That's a nice one. That's a nice, simple one. Thank you very much. Isha, what have you got?
I think it's the house that we're living in. I just, it's been a really interesting journey because now that we're living in it, I walk around and it's like, of course.
Just walk around pretending it's yours.
I do. We talk like but it's like, why did I never think that this could be mine? It's like when I think of all even like how confronted I was when I first came here to where I am now, it's like, literally was all that about?
Yeah, love it. Okay. So yeah, you're already living in a gorgeous house. You just walk around and go, I think I might one day knock that wall out. Those sorts of things. Gisela, you got one for us?
I guess for me, it's more the fact that, we've got the place that I've kind of reached my big goal in life, having the place. And it's like, well, of course we got this, and I'm just going to need to finish that bit. And you know what? Now I'm planning on doing an accommodation blog. So I've been looking at that and going, oh yeah, that's it. That's doable. Let's just plan it out and going, but of course we're going to have it.
Yeah. Cool. So just doing that future planning, really stepping into that. Nice. Tamsin, you got something?
I think you can start with like your habits, because I always think I can only do something when I've achieved something else. But like you said, these things don't require money. And I can have my morning routine without having achieved the goal. And you're going, okay, well, then you do that. And then that just makes everything else more possible.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great one, because why hold yourself back? You know, just start doing it now, especially those things that don't cost any money. Just do it, and step into that space, and you'll bridge that gap so much faster. And I mean, like, why are you punishing yourself and holding yourself back anyway? Beautiful. I'm not sure if Gelly can talk at the moment. She might be, no, unmuted. Awesome. You got one, Gelly?
I mostly do just very simple things. So adjusting my posture. When I notice that I'm either slumping or whatever, and just bringing my chest up, and then smiling, because I know that when you smile for long enough, even if you're not like in that, you know, happy space, it can change your energy a bit. So yeah, just really, really little simple things that I can do just multiple times throughout the day.
Yeah, those are really good suggestions, because you can absolutely use your physiology to up level like where you're at vibrationally. So those are all great examples. I want to make sure that you all are always looking though for really practical, like action orientated things, right? Because we're really wanting to bridge that gap and start to demonstrate it externally. So, yep, adjusting your posture and some of the other things we've talked about, they're really great because they up level you, you know, doing that walk. That's awesome. You're embodying it, right? You're up leveling yourself internally again. But do make sure you don't use those as an excuse to not move forward with some of the external actions, because you really want to think about connecting to 3D reality with your internal one and really helping to bridge that gap and kind of let the two come together. So cool. Awesome. So acting as if, we've covered that. Now, the next one we've got is transitional language. So transitional language is really helpful. You know, a lot of people come from a space where they've spent some time doing lots of affirmations and that sort of thing, and they kind of get into this routine of just, you know, smashing themselves over the head with an affirmation over and over again till you don't even know what you're saying anymore. Like it just becomes the blah, 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 blah. And it, you know, I won't go into my whole affirmation rant, but it can also bring a lot of resistance with it. And so transitional language is nothing like that. Transitional language is literally about you using words to start to bridge the gap. So, for example, Isha might say, I am now in the process of figuring out how we can own our dream home, right? I'm in the process of. So you can go from, like if you did it affirmation style, you'd go, oh, we now own our dream home. And then it would, you know, activate all that with it. That's not what we're doing. We're actually stating a fact. I'm now in the process of figuring it out. You know, I am now in the process of getting my business bedded down and little by little putting the pieces of the puzzle together so that it can sustain me in the way that I want it to. I'm now starting to get better and better at figuring out, you know, how to create great content that really engages people, that turns into sales much quicker. I'm now in the process of I'm starting to, you know, using those sort of, I guess, extension pieces in the language so that it allows you to bridge the gap without all the vibrational resistance. Does this make sense? Yeah. It's a really cool thing to do. Like you can pick one or two things that, you know, you're working towards, and craft a little sentence. And just as you do it, and this might be a really good home play for you guys, just as you do it, really feel into it and just start maybe with the old style affirmation. I now have a business that runs completely on autopilot and, easily brings in X amount per month. And you go, oh, that, you can feel the resistance and the gap. So then you start putting in the lengtheners, I am now starting to enjoy knowing that my business is capable of that. I go, oh, there's still a lot of resistance. I'm now in the process of figuring out all the pieces of the puzzle that are required and taking the steps necessary to put it all together so my business can. So you just keep putting in little lengtheners until the resistance is gone, until you're like, yeah, no, I can say that out loud to myself, and there is no resistance in that whatsoever. And you run with that and try and say it out loud to people wherever you want. Some people might go, why is it such a long sentence? But that's okay. And then what you do over time, and this is why you literally do want to write it out, is you drop little bits out. I'm now in the process of figuring out can become I'm now starting to figure out. See how that's quite different? So you just drop little things as you go, and you're literally training yourself up vibrationally, and you're also instructing your unconscious mind and your brain into this is what we're doing now. And it actually gives you a bit of a focus too. So it works on all these different levels. And over time, you just shorten it until you're really comfortable with just because then you're like, oh shit, I do have a business that comfortably sustains me and brings in, enough to cover all my bills without me having to do a damn thing, because all of that's automated funnels now. Yay. So it's, that's a really nice process. So that's transitional language. That's a really great tool that not a lot of people know about or use. The next one is universal truth. So we've talked about evidence mantra. Evidence mantra is specific to, some money just came in. I'm going to, use a mantra that is specific to me receiving money. Whereas a universal truth is much broader than that. It's something that you can use when you feel yourself going a bit off track. It is an affirmation, but it's not a specific affirmation. So it's something like, you know what? I realize that I insist on worrying all the time, but the universe actually has it figured out already. Or the universe always has my back, or it all works out in the end. Like something really general, like try and get the biggest umbrella you can so that there's no resistance in it at all. And that in itself is actually also a great pattern interrupt, which is the next thing on the list. So a pattern interrupt is just something that if you feel yourself going down a negative spiral, whether it's a negative spiral of thought or it's escalated already to a negative spiral of words and emotion, and maybe even action, like you're starting to, stock the bunker for the nuclear war that you're expecting, you've gone down that spiral. So pattern interrupts are really helpful, especially earlier on. So again, it's about learning to notice what's going on for you. And a pattern interrupt is just a way to snap out of it. And just even if you still continue stocking the bunker or whatever you are doing, the pattern interrupt will weaken that tendency. So especially say you've got like a habit that you're trying to break, a pattern interrupt will just help weaken it, even if you still go ahead. Maybe it's a habit of worrying. It can apply to physical habits too, like smoking even. A pattern interrupt will just weaken that pattern in your nervous system. So a universal truth can be used as a pattern interrupt. We just go, but you know what? The universe always has my back, or it all works out in the end, or I've worried about this kind of stuff before and it turned out I didn't really need to. So really general, really gentle. And that in itself is a pattern interrupt, but then also pattern interrupts can be literally things like physically getting up, going to get a cup of tea, just shaking up your environment. You can do physical things like go, when I feel myself going down that negative track, I'm going to get up and go do some star jumps or whatever you want to do, right? So doing something physical is really helpful. You can also have a verbal pattern interrupt, and a funny, fun, silly one is a really good one. You know, I often give that example of Mike Dooley trained himself into the pattern interrupt of lucky we're rich, you know, every time a big bill would come, or if he was, you know, got a bill at a restaurant going, oh shit, lucky we're rich, or lucky I've got that Swiss bank account, right? So it's a little bit humorous, and it just allows you to just break the momentum of spiraling down. All good. Does anyone have questions or comments about pattern interrupts or universal truth? Good with those? Cool. The last one I want to just quickly talk about is reframing. So reframing, again, it is a type of pattern interrupt, but reframing is just actually training yourself to see different perspectives, because there's always different ways of looking at things, right? So you might have a client cancel and go, no, I'm not going to renew with them. And so you might go down the track of, oh, damn it, you know, I was really counting on that money, and why are people canceling on me? Why are people not wanting to keep working with me? What's wrong with me? Maybe they don't like me. Maybe my work's no good. And then a reframe is just about going, but on the other hand, you know, I want people not to need me eventually. And that actually frees me up to look at more leveraged ways of deriving income. And that actually gives me the space now to focus on that thing I've been wanting to do for so long. And you know what? I didn't really like that client anyway. So it makes room for a beautiful new client to come in. And maybe this is a good chance for me to do that exit survey so that I can actually get that information that gives me really golden information, you know, for serving people and bringing in more of the right people. So it's just about actually pulling back and going, all right, well, what's a different way of looking at this? So that's a reframe. Does that make sense? And you really just need to decide to practice these things, because it's going to be, you know, different depending on the situation. Like there's no stock standard way of doing it. It's a process and it's an approach, but every time you apply it, it's going to be a little bit different. So, you know, you might want to set an intention that, okay, for this next week, I'm going to practice reframing. Every time I catch something coming out of my mouth that's like not really in alignment with the kind of life I want to create for myself, I'm going to stop and reframe that for myself. Does anyone have a good reframe example they want to share? Or something that you might need some help with reframing?
I'm currently using one.
What is it?
Well, I can't really work at the moment or work on my business because of my children's needs, which I struggle with that concept of not being able to do that for myself. But I'm at the moment using a lot of, I'm actually really, really lucky that I don't have to be working, because we can be supported by my husband's income as a family, and not a lot of people can have that. So yeah. And then you know, I think, oh well, if I was a millionaire, say, what would I be doing? Probably spending time with my kids. So I'm already doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so those are some of the things I'm doing right now.
Perfect. Great examples. Thank you, Gelly. And yes, Jack, it basically is like deciding that, oh, hang on, I'm looking at this glass half empty right now. What if I look at the glass half full part? You know, what can I talk about there? and really using that as an excuse to, if you can, also build some positive momentum, which Gelly was starting to. Like, if I had all the money in the world, like, what would I want to do? Well, I'd want to be spending this precious time with my kids while they're young, you know, and I'd be so grateful that I get to do it. So, and I'm already getting to do it. Like, how blessed are we that, you know, I don't have to put my kids in like, for me, it was, I don't have to put my kids in childcare, like, and I had to go when I was a kid. I lived with my grandparents, and my parents both worked, and so I would use reframes around that, going, you know, I get to parent the way that I want to parent, and how blessed am I that I didn't have to do what my mum had to do, rather than perseverating on the frustration of, I really want to be doing my own thing, and God, these kids are style cramping, which they totally can be. We love them, but God, they can be style cramping. So hopefully you've all got that. So we'll break up into breakout sessions just for a little bit. And what I'd like you to talk about is one key takeaway from today, and then one thing you really want to spend some time practicing. So I will just a couple. How many are we? Creative. Gilly's got to go. Okay, cool. Easy. I'm just going to assign you automatically, and I might. Cool. So share one key takeaway, something you learned, and something you really want to practice. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Amazing.
So we'll just wait for the others to come back.
I love seeing
We'll wrap
Jackie
it
again. It was so good.
Hmm.
The
We
retreat
can't hear
really,
you, Jackie.
it really creates such a difference when you meet people like online and then real life.
Yep.
So
I've been
good, so
speaking to
good.
Miriam for 7 years, maybe, and we finally met in Bali.
Yeah.
So good, so
Great.
good.
hmm And then there's people we meet for the first time in Bali, and then
Yeah.
Yes.
All my friends
So-
always online. I love it. Yeah.
Jackie, tell me one good takeaway, juicy thing that you guys came up with in your room before we close up.
I think the most of our discussion was around the tools that we have, and that although we can think about doing, it's important to actually do them.
Mhm.
So we all identified what we need to do more of. Would you agree that's a right summation, Catherine and Anisha?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
It's
So
not just
actually
about
practice
thinking,
the
it's the
tools.
doing.
Yeah, we
Good.
know it, but we just don't.
All right.
We do it.
Good. So hopefully you've all set your intention that just pick one of those tools to mindfully
Yeah.
practice each day, like put a little post-it up somewhere or something like that, and help yourself remember. Claire, what was it for you guys?
It was mainly that as well, to actually use the tools. And so
Mhm.
outlining them and separating them was really helpful today. And a second takeaway was there's usually something in our lives somewhere where we, even if things aren't going well, where we can step into that abundance. It
Mhm.
might be smelling a beautiful rose, or it's usually something that if we had $1 million or, we're multimillionaires, we would still do that thing. So those two things were leapt out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's maybe also a nice little exercise to go through. Like, if I had all the money in the world, how would I spend my days? And really writing it out. And, it kind of goes back to happy habits as well. And so this is about embodying it as much as you can on an even more practical level, like really taking that next step. So looking for those opportunities. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And remember, you've got the tools. maybe make a list of those 5 tools and stick it somewhere as well, and just pick one at a time to play with and practice. Once you get into a habit, like you'll have your favorites and they just start to come out really easily, and you won't even remember not having it in your repertoire and in just how you approach life, because they're so helpful and so simple. Just takes a little bit of practice to get comfortable with them. Beautiful. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for playing today. I had a really fun call with you guys. Week off next week. I'm going to have a nice birthday lazy week, and I'll see you the following focus sessions will be available the following week, and then we will get stuck into that old money story and have some fun with that. Oh, which I can't wait for. Oh, what is happening? Oh, look at that reaction in the chat. I didn't know that was a thing. Love it. Good one. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for the birthday cakes.